The breakthrough was to switch to the problems we solve and for whom. You can't work for everybody. You can ask the better question. You earn the brand leadership. We're in the email era of AI.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakout CEO Podcast. I am so excited. Every week I get to talk to really interesting people, CEOs who've done cool things, built great businesses, and they're here to share. They're here to share their insights with you and me and all of our audience. And it's such a pleasure to, I don't know, just be brought in behind the curtain a little bit with CEOs. Today, we've got a great guest for you, Mike LaVista with Caxy. Mike, hey, thanks for coming on the show.
Jeff, excited to talk to you. And if we ever get to, I want to know about the swords behind you on the wall.
Oh, the sword. Yeah. Well, I can tell you real briefly. It's a replica of the Griffin Warrior.
Oh.
The Griffin Warrior was about 1400 to 1600 BC in Greece, and represents kind of the bringing together of different eras, bridging of a couple different eras and a couple different communities. I was there last. I've got some history with Greece. My wife's family is from Greece, and I feel like, and I've claimed to be adopted by the Greek culture because I don't know what it is. I really like it.
That's fantastic.
That's fantastic. Thanks for asking.
And as far as like a Kismet goes, my son's high school mascot was the Griffin. So I think we're already off to a good start. Let's roll.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So I don't know. I'm now my mind's going to be like in the back processing and be like, how can we put this together? We're going to bring this full circle, I'm sure, by the end of the episode here. But let's talk about what you're doing, what you're building. I want to set the stage a little bit because a lot of people are doing AI, right? And there's this whole thing about AI is going to make your business better, and a lot of that's true. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But we're not necessarily here to just say, oh, here's what you need to do to implement AI in your business. We want to talk about like how AI is, or how your experiences with building your business both led to, breakout moments that you can share with other people that might or might not involve the AI explicitly. Mm-hmm. But then also, I think maybe you've got some thoughts about how AI is helping you rethink how to be a CEO, perhaps, or how AI is helping you connect with other CEOs in a different way than what we might have done, or how we might have thought about it in the past. So, but before we dig into all that, tell us about how you got into the business. You weren't always in AI, clearly, because it hasn't been around that long.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned you were a musician before. Is that right?
I did. Yeah. I have a kind of a strange entrepreneurial path, and that is out of college, as I was, waiting tables and other things, I ended up joining among other things, I ended up joining an 80s cover band. And so for about 5 years out of college, I was touring the country and playing bars and college campuses, wearing a mesh t-shirt and parachute pants and playing, Panama and, Madonna and Cyndi Lauper and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yes.
And it was a really fun gig and life, and I married the singer, and those guys are all my best friends ever. But I remember playing Jesse's Girl at the University of Northern Iowa and going, I can't do this when I'm 60. I gotta find something else to do. And I'd always been involved with computers. My grandfather, strangely, was involved with. He was a computer programmer in like the 60s and 70s, and got my cousin and I really into computer programming. In fact, this is how I have the gray hair to prove it. My grandfather once got my cousin and I a printed book of computer programs that one would take home and page by page type it in, and voila, you'd have the snake game. And that got me hooked. But computers weren't such an exciting career when I was coming out of high school and college. It didn't become what it is now, which is just everywhere. It wasn't everywhere yet. And it wasn't this. God, I feel so old talking about it this way, but like the internet really kind of kicked off during this period. And I had some friends that kind of get involved in what your history books will call the .com boom. And I was like, my friend said, hey, we should do something. You do computers, right? I'm like, maybe. And so we started this company at the end of this band cycle, just kind of backwards. Like, let's do some computer stuff was the business plan. And for about a year and a half, we made absolutely no progress at all. And I know your listeners are kind of looking for those breakthrough moments. And like a lot of people in many businesses, Luck had a lot to do with it. In fact, whenever I meet someone who thinks they weren't lucky, it doesn't take long to track down their origin story to go, oh, lightning struck here and you didn't realize it. And so for
Yeah.
me, we took out a really expensive ad in the big trade publication here in Chicago. And it was a 3-month ad, 3-month, I think it was a full page ad, 3-month ad. It was half page. Well, let's take a history. Let's say it's a full page. And
Yeah.
No one called the first month, no one called the second month, and no one called the third month. And we were literally getting ready to pack the boxes up. And someone called, and it wasn't a client, but it was another agency that said, our client saw your ad and said, can you guys do that? Because that sounds kind of cool. We'd like to do that. And they said, we don't actually, but we can call these guys. And so they did. And so our first client was Citibank, just because of a random lightning strike. Someone happened to read the trade pub. So that was just random luck breakout. So probably not as strategic as you would hope. But then I spent probably 10 years making a transition from being like the key technology person to moving over to sales and account and other things, which I found myself being really surprised that I really, really liked. Maybe even more than programming. So that's kind of at least the first chunk of my career there.
Well, I have a few questions, and maybe our audience does too. That I'm sure some of them are wondering how long, did any of the mesh shirts and parachute pants carry over into the business?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so it's funny. So I have a podcast as well, and there was a period of time for about a year, maybe going back about 2 or 3 years ago, where I did maybe 8 months of just content for CEOs who were musicians. And the reason is what I thought kind of dragged over from the mesh shirt stuff was, this will make sense probably as I just talk about this, that, speaking in front of a board or an audience or something. Well, I'd been on stage with 1,000 people and, like organizing a team. Well, I had to, wrangle, the whole wrangling cats thing. I got a band of 5 or 6 members, and we had to figure out how to get from Chicago to Rhode Island in the middle of the night.
Right.
Like a lot of those skills and, dedicating yourself to an instrument is like dedicating yourself to a profession or skill. Those things really carried over. And I think mostly for me, and I think I kind of show up to some people as maybe a little bit of an extrovert. I'm not at all. And I feel like it's something I know how to. I'm on a podcast. I have a switch I can flip that I learned playing music. And there's a kind of so I think I credit a lot of how I show up and who I became to those experiences, which were hard. And there's nothing like either kind of getting like, worse than getting booed is silence, is finishing a song and you're like, and then no one makes, you just hear like glasses clinking and people murmuring. It was like that kind of stuff I think really carries forward. So I'm a big proponent of not only music education, but performance too.
Well, what would you tell, on that note, what would you tell somebody, another CEO who says, man, I can't put on, my stage face. I want to be authentic but I'm having a hard time getting success. Like, how do you reconcile those? Or what would you say to somebody who's like you, not totally extroverted, but it has some success, but just can't quite unlock the stage presence? Just a quick note about our guests. I host the Breakout CEO podcast to share behind the scenes insights from scaling businesses. As an attorney, I see the real challenges leaders face long before success becomes public. But client stories have to stay confidential. So we invite guest CEOs to share their own moments of struggle and success. I'm so grateful to our guests and my team at Intellectual Strategies for making this show possible. Now, let's get back to the show.
I don't think I've ever been asked a question. It's a really good question. I love it. And that's my stall to figure out a good answer. So I think it's a couple of things that came to mind. So one, I remember talking to one of our younger salespeople who just hadn't done a lot of it and saying that, if you go to a networking event and you're nervous, it's not like going to a bar and trying to talk to people. It's totally the opposite. If you're at a business event, people expect you to come up and talk to you. So like some of the hacks I have are just like, and we've all done this. If you're at a conference and there's 3 people talking at a, stand-up table, whatever, just walk up and go, hey, you guys mind if I introduce myself? I've never in 20 years had anyone go, actually, this is a private conversation, sir. Please go away. And, you don't have to worry about it. Like there's literally like, people are dying for that because honestly, most people go to conferences and don't know anybody, right? So I feel like that's something. And then I think something from the music stuff is and maybe like I'm trying to get better at golf. It's like golf too, where it's like you can't expect to go out and have your first shot be great. You got to hit 100 or 1,000 shots for it to be like, oh, I get this, right? So if you're a CEO, is like, I don't know how to turn it on. I always say with creative endeavors, and I would say like doing something like this is a creative endeavor.
Yeah.
Expect that your first 10 will be terrible, and
Right.
your first 10 projects, your first 10 songs, your first 10 poems, your first 10, blogs will be bad. And you have to develop that muscle and have the expectation that you will improve, not the expectation that you will be great right away.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. I think there's something I can't remember what if I was listening to a podcast the other day or watching something, and there was this whole concept of essentially adopting an alter ego, right? And I
Right.
know some people have also done that. They said, listen, when I go out there as a CEO or as a musician, I just have an alter ego and I put it on, and that's who I am. It doesn't, it's not
Yeah.
necessarily that it's inconsistent with who I am in other times. It's just that gives me, that's my clothing, that's my
Yeah.
outfit when I go into these settings. So I've
I
heard
think it's
that's
pretty good. It's funny. I was listening to weirdly Larry David on a podcast recently,
oh yeah.
and he said something about like for a while earlier on, he got uncomfortable at parties, and he realized that all he had to do was turn on TV Larry, and he could be that guy. And like he kind of knew that character. He knew that
Yeah.
character to put on, and it's kind of funny for him because it's an amusing character. But like I think if you think of yourself as like you just said, here's my CEO face for this. And honestly, as we say this, I also feel like I'd been in a lot of CEO groups when I was younger. And I
Mhm.
remember sort of like modeling the behavior of the older people and being
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
that's how that's the presence, that's the energy. I know one of the things I do is I tend to start talking too quickly. And, there's a lot of gravity that comes with slowing it down and
Okay.
being more serious. And I have to remember that. And I don't do it. So it's like, I think some of those things, again, they're just learned.
Yeah, and having just being in those settings, putting yourself out there, taking action. If you don't
Yeah.
do it, you're never going to learn it. You're never going to get through your first 10 strokes or whatever it
Right.
is. And yeah. Well, I think I'm gonna take away from this. I'm gonna call that the mesh outfit for some reason. I think that's
Please do.
fitting here.
Please do. I still have it downstairs somewhere. I
Oh,
had 3 outfits. I got them all still.
sweet. Well, if we ever have you on a second time,
I
no.
will wear it. That's my commitment to you. That's my commitment to the bit.
All right. So you mentioned that you went in and you were doing all these other roles. I'm really curious because I mean CEOs, it's a really unique role in a company, right? You're the visionary, you're the strategy, you're the rah-rah cheerleader, you're trying to get everybody to do everything. You may or may not understand exactly how they do it or what their magic powers are. You're trying to get people smarter than you. But to go in and actually experience these things and be in those roles before building your own company is super powerful, right? There a lot of companies now tout, hey, everybody who starts has to go through a series of, customer service
Yeah.
days or whatever. What's your takeaway from the different roles that you were in? Which ones carried over most prominently
So,
for you as a CEO?
yeah, I would say that, our company has, uh, maybe not too many roles, but certainly there are production roles and there are management roles and there are sales roles and all
Mhm.
kinds of other things. And so I spent a long time early in the history of the company being our main developer. And so my friend, my partner, was the person kind of doing client and sales and all this stuff. And I could just lock myself in a closet and just be, kind of bang away at stuff.
Yeah.
And I felt like that experience has led to me understanding the developer journey. And while I don't really do a lot of the technologies that the company offers right now, I kind of dabble, but it's more like I know how it's all supposed to work. And today's
Yeah.
tech is this, and tomorrow's tech will be something else. I feel like a value that I hope people would agree at the company is that we are a place where it's awesome to be a developer because we get that job. And I feel like if I were to paint a picture of like a bad place to be a developer, there are a lot of places where being a developer is sort of treated like sweatshop work, and they're a whip is cracking over your head as you're
Yeah.
demanded to figure something out by Friday, and development is sort of it's a weird job. It's a job where the work you're doing doesn't work, doesn't work, doesn't work, doesn't work, finally works. And then you go to the next tech and it doesn't work, doesn't work. And it's just it's a weird, it's a weird profession to be in. And it's always experimenting and you're always learning something new. And the second you think you've mastered something, that technology goes away because that's old stuff. Now we get to the new stuff. And so I feel like I appreciate that. And I know how hard it is to stay current and stay up on things. And we started off talking a little bit about AI. AI, like this whole, the things can be a challenge or an opportunity thing. When we'd been in AI or broadly speaking, machine learning for, 7 or 8 years, whenever it really kind of started to get big, maybe it's 10 years now. But it wasn't until LLMs came along with ChatGPT and Claude and all those things that people are like, oh my God, this is so amazing. And also so easy to use that for a while there, I was kind of worried if we could even have a business anymore. Because if you read the papers, you read the interviews, oh, this junior developer job's gone. For you, entry level law clerks gone. Like, do you want to? You don't need any of that. And I kind of I don't know if I believe it, but I was sort of worried it might be right for a while. And I don't know about your field, but for us, we've realized actually no junior developer jobs are not going away. They're not going anywhere. The truly the message that has to come out of this is to be in any job, it has to be whatever you're doing plus AI. So for our developers, it's like we don't want it writing all the code, but there's some things it does really well that we hate doing. And, so this is a trivial example, like in the weeds for development, but like, clients never want to pay for testing, and yet it's really important. Well, guess what? AI is great at that. And so instead of having people bang away on tests that no one wants to pay for, no one wants to do, but are hugely valuable, we have AI work on that. And so what I want our company to be and is, we want to be the company that figures out how to deliver the best, highest quality, most performing enterprise software that uses AI in the process, because your average Joe who just sits down and uses Claude isn't going to get there. And so I'm giving these long answers to your questions, but where you started was,
these are great. These are great.
What about, having a history in development helps me do that better? Well, it helps me not be a jerk. And when I look at some of the stuff online, it's like, so-and-so is laying off 10,000 people because they figure out how to replace them with AI. Well, you're wrong. And then 6 months later, you have to hire them all back. And maybe we all know it was a charade for the street, or you had a bad quarter and you want to blame AI, but whatever. But we're not going to do that. And we're going to find the way to make it human, make the human part of it like accentuated. And honestly, there are people at the company who are kind of like, but have spoken out about like, is AI even really ethical, and all the energy and resource demands? And I want to find the path through that satisfies all of that. Ethical, environmental, our company, our clients, there is a solution and we're going to find it.
I love that, because it you're focusing on the empowerment side of it, right? There are challenges for sure, but there are also lots of opportunities. I actually spoke with a section of the Utah State Bar this morning and presented on a topic kind of similar. And I'm like, hey, disruption's happening. Disruption has happened in the past in different ways. It's happening again with AI and managed service organizations and all these things that are happening where venture capital is coming into the legal industry. And my takeaway was, I think a little bit like what you're saying, and this probably broadly applies to a lot of industries, which is, the disruption's here. There's not a whole lot we can do about it, except leverage it, right? Why not leverage it so that we as attorneys who have this unique kind of access into the infrastructure of companies across disciplines, right? Where we become more strategically inclined, more strategically valuable, instead of, less helpful or more perfunctory in a way. Like, let's take the opportunity, free up some time, start to learn to really be the keystone in the business strategy, instead of just the legal help, the vending machine attorney that you just put more money into when you want another contract. So I mean, we'll see if we're right. But man, I'd rather have that outlook than just be like, nah, we're dead. Industry's gone.
And the idea I've been writing a little bit about is, I think we're in the email era of AI. And what I mean by that is when the internet first kind of came into existence, the first amazing idea was, hey, remember that slow paper mail that we have with the stamps? Forget that. We have a new thing. It's called email. It goes faster. And so now we have faster mail, and that's cool. And that was a really great invention, right? But like, no one envisioned like full completely based businesses like Netflix, or,
Right.
like we're doing, we're doing work on an airplane through satellite technology, like all these things, like that's what AI in 10 or 20 years is going to be, when we figured out the cool thing to do. Because
Right.
right now, like automating an email response, or we're back to email, automating an email response, or, reading the brief, or whatever, I guess it's a little helpful, but there's a second or third order effect that's going to happen that we are all collectively part of figuring out. And I want to get there and have that be valuable.
Well, and to your email example, like we're not so advanced that getting a little bit of help with the email isn't actually helpful. Like
Yeah, it's
that's
good.
making people are doing it because it makes a difference,
Yeah.
because we're not too far ahead of that, anyways. But no, I love it. And I was just talking to my daughter. We took a vacation and we're flying, and I'm like, kind of funny that we can, you know, I think we were driving down the road after the trip, and we pointed up to the plane. I'm like, man, it's funny. We can like walk around up in the air. We happen to be inside of a plane, but you
Yeah.
just get up and you walk around, you sit down, you get on your computer, watch your movies, and that's all happening 40,000 feet in the air. I don't know. It's fun to think where AI is going to take us, given all the things that we've been able to do without AI so far.
Yeah.
You mentioned before, though, and I'm really curious about your thoughts, where AI is going to, like, how is AI, in addition to automating businesses, how is AI helping the C-suite operate differently, or helping CEOs think differently about their business? Not hopefully not. Automation's one thing, being faster, being more cost effective is one thing, but is there something about it that makes us that gives CEOs a better opportunity to be a better CEO, or bring new dimensions into the role or into the business that didn't exist before? What are your thoughts on that?
So when I think about working with CEOs, there are three things I'm expecting them to care about, and it's going to be
Mhm.
risk. How do I manage the risk in the business better? How do I create growth? And
Mhm.
how do I create innovation or
Yeah.
differentiation? And so one of the most important things AI can help with is iterating. And so let's take the growth example. If you're looking for growth, a lot of times companies are stuck on the things that they've always done, and they have kind of a playbook, right? But just having AI as your thought iteration partner to say, okay, here's what we're doing. Give me I always like to give it a number. Give me 31 ideas for new growth for Jeff's
Yeah.
law firm, and iterating on that. You're the editor, right? You're the person
Mhm.
who's looking at it and picking out of the 31, okay, 7, 11, 22, 29, take those out. So you're guiding that, and it helps break out of a rut. I think that's a pretty good use case. I think, and the same goes for the other categories as well. If you're looking at risk, you're looking at differentiation. I think it's also pretty good at doing research. So, for example, you want to do, what are our competitors doing? You can have a research department. And here's one of those where it's like, I might have my research department armed with AI better. So instead
Yeah.
of like it taking a month to do a report on what's happening, we have a daily of the 30 competitors we care about and what changed from yesterday. And just think about the scale of what would happen if you had, a an asset in the company that could go look at 1,000 websites today and come back with, what it found, what was different. Now people look at that and go, okay, let's pick this apart. So I think it's really thinking as a CEO about what are the ideas I can do at scale that I couldn't do before. And I think that's the thing. Um, I'd love for companies to get past doing what we did already faster and coming
Yeah.
up with what could we do that we weren't able to do before. I think that's where we find when I think about companies that have these ideas where, like, the legacy company was doing X and they came up with a digital thing that ended up being 10 or 100X of the original company. It's because they thought of something new to do. It's not because they did something faster.
Yeah. Is this something that you've seen in your own business and your experience? Like, what, like if we were just get down to the brass tacks here and say,
Yeah.
Mike, what have you done in your business? Excuse me,
Yeah.
Mike, what have you done in your business to, like, that you're doing differently now? Maybe, maybe faster, but what are the things you're really doing differently with your team or with your
All right.
clients?
So one of the things that we've done, I think AI allows small and mid-sized players to punch above their weight and play like a big player. So, for
Yeah.
example, um, I'm thinking, okay, so here's some examples. So in our business, We're online, we're digital, and for us to keep up with the big guys to do, video and blogs and content and keep our site SEO up to date. And now there's GEO. I want to appear in Chat GPT when people ask about AI consulting companies. All those things would have meant managing either a cadre of agencies and partners or hiring all these people to do that kind of work. And instead, we're able to keep up with it, I think, at the pace that the bigger companies might be doing by just creating agents to do some of that work for us. Then we edit.
Yeah.
And we do that. Part of it has been, Caxy has been in the software development business for a long time, and yet we didn't have any products that we did, right? And so AI allowed us to take some of the products we'd always used for our own business, turn them into products, and then also we've got a few that we're like, oh, actually this would be cool, and since we know what we're doing, we can create a product better, faster than the average Joe using something like Claude. And so we created some products for that. In fact, one of them that I'll send you a free link to is we have a podcast editing and publishing suite that's like all the tools that we normally used pulled together into one thing and some new ones that you can't get anywhere else. And so
Oh,
we're
very
trying
cool.
to show hey, we do this too, kind of thing. And I think it's thinking of what's the different thing we can do with this new capability as a CEO. That is a lot of the stuff that I advise people on. And it's really, most organizations do get stuck in the same old thing and just doing it faster.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of companies doing that, where it's almost like we're creating new products, new revenue streams, because we have the capabilities, right? And I wonder if there's a limit to where that's going to go. I always think of when I talk to, and I say this because when I talk to clients about their, I'm an attorney. People think,
Yeah.
oh, you just do law. Well, I talk to a lot of people about their business. I'm in a lot of those meetings with the CEOs and C-suite already, and I don't mind sharing my opinions on it. But one thing that I share that seems to come across as, I don't know, a little bit new to some people. I'm like, hey, listen, when you start a new product, you need to think about this as its own business in a lot of ways, because you've probably got to, enter a new market. You got to create new assets. It's a different revenue stream, maybe a different revenue model. Like all of a sudden you're tacking on not just a product onto your business. You're actually entering or creating a second business to go along with your first business. And how those grow, they might stay aligned, they might not. Like, how do you think about that? Because I think while it is an opportunity to branch out, I've seen some companies, AI or otherwise, that branch out so quickly. They're like, we're doing awesome, let's start 4 more companies. And then they've got 5 companies that aren't doing well instead of one or two that are doing great.
That's really interesting. I feel like I do. I love I follow this phenomenon a lot, and I'm very curious about it, because I think that the core of it is you need to be intelligent and strategic about what business you're in. And maybe the original big CEO for FedEx, I want to say, is Fred Smith. People in the comments will correct me, but he had a saying that was keep the main thing the main thing. And what we know FedEx does is deliver overnight. That was their main thing, right? And I think about McDonald's, for example, doesn't make their wrappers and their cardboard boxes, right? They're not in the cardboard box business. So they have a partner that they do $100 million, I'm making this up, $100 million of business with, that supplies their cardboard boxes for the Big Macs, because that's not the business they're in, right? And so I find a lot of the companies that we work with are like a manufacturing company that all of a sudden is hiring developers because development looks easy now. And they don't know how hard it is to grow and maintain an engineering culture, and to keep people interested, and to give them the cool things to work on, to keep them from going somewhere else. And they kind of they underestimate the complexity and care that it takes to have this, as you just said, completely new business. And so, and granted, grain of salt, because this is what we do, but I think for most companies, it's a new business. It's probably better for you to buy the boxes like McDonald's and have a partner do it. But you're still the person who knows what boxes work for your customers and what should go in the box and all that kind of stuff. But don't make the boxes. And I'm probably confusing metaphors here, but I really think that be careful about what business you're in, because you said it. Why there's a saying that's like, chase 2 rabbits can catch none. Have a good business and strategically go into this other one if it seems like it's a fit for you. But understand there's more of a challenge than you probably think.
Yeah. So having said that, and I appreciate that, because I wasn't trying to make you go against kind of the services you sell,
Yeah.
but there's this tension, right? That a lot of CEOs are right now saying, we got to do something. Like, let's tack something on. Let's find another
Yeah.
revenue stream. Like, we got to hedge against our main business going down. And you're kind of in those conversations with them, I think. So you have a say, and you can kind of give some guidance. Where have you seen clients' efforts, be fruitful when they're saying, "Yeah, let's do this type of thing"? Do you have any
So
experiences you can share?
yeah, so the mental image I think works really well. So like level one is to
Hmm.
think about just technology in general, but especially AI, as making your current offering like this. I wish I had a better word. Um, Making your current offering more muscular. Like
Mm.
when you if you're a salesperson and you are armed without any mental load, like you can get into flow with a customer because effortlessly everything you need to know, competitive stuff, your product mix, all your data, that you are there and you are armed, you are smarter, you are more present, you've got more to offer than whoever they talk to. If it's an RFP, the other three guys, you go into that and you are just dialed in because
Yeah,
of the technology. I think there's a case to be made for winning market share by getting better at what you're doing and not faster at what you're doing. Faster comes with it, but get better through AI. And I think that's a pretty compelling message because I think the things that won't go away, the people to people things that people like will stay. And how do I
yeah.
get better at that?
Oh man, you're hitting a chord here. Another music metaphor, yes.
Yeah.
You're hitting a chord here. Like, I think of the legal industry, and how many clients within the legal industry are completely satisfied with the services they receive from their attorneys.
Right.
We all, as attorneys, law firms, have so much room to just make it more robust, make it
Mhm.
better, make it stronger, as you said. So I think I gotta write that one down and maybe take it to my team here after this. So
Because you don't it's all about this. For me, it's about finding, and this is like sounds like just kind of consulting speak. It really is finding more value adding
yeah,
activities and services. So as a lawyer, I hate that I have to pay you to read the 39-page document. I
yep,
love what you get out of it. I get you have to do it, but why does it take so long? Like, you know what I mean? So
yeah, yeah.
if we can get to the value creating part faster and better, oh my God, everyone wins. And I want to spend more on legal. My lawyer actually did a great job a few years ago, not convincing me, but getting me up to speed with the idea that legal is an investment. Like
Mhm.
the three times I didn't call him about a contract are the three times we got absolutely blasted. And if he's listening, yes, I understand. Thank you, Jim. And so, but because I didn't want to pay for that review, which is so short sighted and dumb. But if I can get to the value part, it's so much better.
Well, and the same would apply with AI these days, right? Well,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are holding off. Well, wait and see, where's this headed? And maybe you don't want to go blow your entire profit from the last year on a project that's untested, but maybe you need to start making investments instead of watching from the
Mhm.
sidelines, right? So that
Yeah.
so you can, again, get back into first strokes. There's different setting. We're not talking about networking now, but you got to take a few swings to find the tools that are going to work with your industry and with your team. So,
Yeah.
um, very good. Well, okay, so let's get back into maybe breakout moments for a minute, because you mentioned initially one breakout moment where it was a little bit of luck coming, third
Yeah.
month closing and coming into a client with Citibank via another agency or something. Where have you seen the biggest leverage points since that kind of initial time in your business?
So I think there's two big ones. The one that really changed the trajectory quite literally of the company was a realization that we were talking about what we do.
Hmm.
And if you're in a service business and you're at a networking event, you go, I'm a lawyer and I serve commercial, blah, blah. I'm the web developer. We make websites. And
That's what people ask you. It's
right.
not only
Yeah,
that's what we say, but
that's the
they're
thing
like,
we say. What
"Oh,
do you
so what do
do?
you do?" And of course we're gonna answer, "This
Right.
is what I do."
And because in a way it's easy and it's in your brain. Like there's a place in your brain that like has identified what you do, right?
Yeah.
And I think that so the breakthrough was to switch to the problems we solve and for whom. And so, so if people ask what I do, I jujitsu that and I turn it into the problems we solve without even saying anything about it.
Yeah.
And when all of a sudden when you're a software developer, people are waiting to for a moment where they need software development or whatever. And that almost never happens. But when I say like, we work on, creating a strategic advantage for companies using technology, all of a sudden it's like, well, what does that mean? And
Mm.
and we work with companies who, like, honestly, if you want to refer me to someone, we only want to work with the people who you think don't need us at all because I got everything buttoned up. And the answer is I've never seen anyone with everything buttoned up, but people who are winning can continue to win much more easily. And
Yeah.
so all of a sudden now that conversation led to more strategic conversations, bigger numbers, higher people higher up in the organization, more, working with the CEOs as opposed to the CIOs, who are terrific, but have to go ask for money and permission. And
Right.
so, finding the problem you solve, it was the first breakthrough. And then the other one, which every company is scared to do, is to find a niche. And
Hmm.
it can't be like, you can't work for everybody. Well, who do you serve? Well, we serve, small, medium businesses all the way up to enterprise in every market in the US and Canada and Mexico and overseas. It's like, I don't even know what you do. But if you say, we're a law firm that specializes in, Section 8 housing, and not that you do, but like all of a sudden people, oh, I know a Section 8 housing person. And, and,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you narrow down to that niche. And so we've actually drilled down to a couple of niches that we're like really, really good at. And one of them is like, so we work a lot with tribal casinos. So like,
Hmm.
you're, um, casinos run by a tribe on a reservation usually, or sometimes not. Um, and we're really good at some of the elements of that business. And all of a sudden, it's not a big market, but if we got, like the fame, if we got 2% of it, I could retire tomorrow. So like, but
Yeah.
all of a sudden, when you have a problem like that, we have a ton of experience. We're excited about it. We know all the twists and turns, and those are the referrals we're looking for. It's not a typical industry, but like it took some courage to stop saying we work for everybody, but that's been really successful.
Well, and those go hand in hand, right? If you work for everybody, you can't articulate a problem or an outcome that you provide because you don't know what you can't identify one that crosses all boundaries. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, no, that's perfect. How is when you made these changes, how did your team leverage that? Because I don't know exactly who does the selling or who does
Mm.
the kind of account management for your team, but
Yeah.
I would guess if you kind of disperse this way of thinking across your team, all of a sudden throughout the customer journey, they're going to have um, a totally different experience as a
Yeah.
customer if everybody along the way is saying, "Oh, this is the problem we solve.
Totally.
This is the outcome we go after. You're our ideal client. We work with you, people who like you all the time, and so we know what we're doing." Now you're not just marketing differently, you're creating an experience that's different.
Yeah. Honestly, the biggest response is I can finally tell my mom what I do and have it make sense. Because it's like if it's too complicated, if it takes longer than, 9 seconds and 11 words, you've lost them.
Yeah.
And I think that boiling down the complexity, if I just said, "Listen, we focus on player loyalty, maximizing player loyalty for tribal casinos," and I just fumbled over that, but that's at least somewhat understandable as opposed to, we can whatever you want. We can develop a piece of software for you. I don't you tell
Yeah.
us, and it's not helpful.
Yeah, and then you're like, "Is it games? Is it productivity?" Like,
Right,
it's
right.
just yeah. That makes sense. And so once you made this change, like what did the business look like before you kind of nailed down this problem outcome approach, and where did it go with that change? What were you able to achieve?
Yeah, so what I noticed is that before we were doing a lot of kind of transactional, almost like RFP, or people call us because they need a thing and here's a price for the thing. Oh, that's too much. Well, let's make it a little bit lower. Okay, we'll do the thing. It wasn't, I never knew where the next thing was going to come from.
Hmm.
And one of the biggest changes is we were kind of locked in strategically to like a core stable of like really good companies that we work with almost all the time. And I think they see us as like an athlete. You have to, as a service provider, they have to see that when they invest $1 in you, that they get 5 back.
Yeah.
And if it's not, like, why are we paying these guys? Just get our own guys. And so that changed pretty dramatically. And I think as a service business, our average order size, I think I calculated it went up a little over 5x over 3 years.
Wow.
And just as like a thing in my head, like I now realize I do this when I go into the CRM and I put a new deal in. The average deal I put in has an extra zero from when it did 5 years ago.
So that's interesting. I mean, we're really talking about brand leadership or market leadership versus price leadership, right? Which,
Yeah,
for the audience, you all know this, but in case this is new terminology, price leadership is really about having the lowest cost structure possible so you can compete on the lowest price
yeah,
possible, versus brand leadership, which is, the Apple of the world. We can charge kind of what we want because we have the brand,
yep,
the brand value that people will come to the brand. Pricing is not the thing. So I think what you're describing, correct me if I'm wrong, is you guys were, by identifying problems and outcomes for specific people, specific customers, you now shifted from that kind of price leadership model, or maybe just broadly commodity model,
yeah.
commodity services model, into brand leadership for your specific customers.
Yes, and I feel like it's almost there's like a strategy behind a couple of ideas that I'll give to people that I think this works
Uh-huh.
for non-service businesses. Um, but you have to ask yourself, and in the customer's mind too, under what circumstances would I pay a premium? And so you mentioned
Okay.
Apple, right? I've been an Apple fan since college, and um, almost at a product level, it's never the best product, right? There are faster computers. There are for a long time you had a lot more choices on other platforms for programs, all that kind of stuff. But I just
Right.
something about it, and I was willing to spend more. So we talked about, I'm a musician. Um, I don't like spending a lot of money on tires, but I will spend $5,000 on a guitar because that's worth it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how much your sword cost, but I bet it wasn't cheap. And like there are things that you care about in life because there is a circumstance under which you would pay a premium for it. And so part of the job as a salesperson in service is to create that idea in the person's head that's like, well, you know what? These guys are more. But like, I don't know, there's something like that we need to go with this. And for me, the conduit to that thought is asking the better question. And so, like our strategy, our sales strategy is we want to demonstrate our expertise, not by bragging about ourselves, because no one wants to listen to you brag about yourself. But if we can, in the sales process, hit you, and we say wound, if we can wound you with 5 questions you don't know the answers to, when you go away,
Mhm.
you're going to, the other guys showed us all their portfolios, but those guys asked us, what are we going to do when we overspend our token budget and we didn't have a plan? Or when the board asks us, hey, what's happening with the AI strategy? And our answer, we think, kind of sucks. Like,
Yeah.
is it worth to pay a premium and have the answers to those questions? I mean, I realize they're twice as much, but I really think these are the guys to go with. So it's asking, if you can ask the better question, you can, I like the way you framed it with the price leadership versus the brand leadership. I think you earn the brand leadership with asking better questions.
Yeah, especially at the sales stage. That makes
Yeah.
a ton of sense. You're almost educating through questioning rather than just, bragging or whatever. Hey, here's
Yeah.
what we've done for everybody else. And you're just like, hey, have you thought about this? Where I like that. I mean, that's where these guys convince themselves that they want to hire you.
Yeah.
Because they love the questions you're answering, the questions you're asking, knowing that you've got the answers or can help them get the answers.
Yeah.
So, well, I want to just focus for just a moment too on what you said before, because a 5x or a 10x multiple on sales revenue in the company because you niche down. I mean, that's, how often do you think that works? I think we all hear about that, but I think a lot of people are still scared to say, yeah, I'm committed to it. I think it's going to work, and I'm going to actually niche down. And so they don't niche down. They just they stay general. They never really see the fruits of it. Is it like, is that common? Do you think you see competitors who resist that niching
Yeah.
down?
There's it's fine. There's a company in Chicago that I like to make fun of. I'm sure it's a great company, but the name of the company is Just Decks.
Okay.
And they used to have all these bus benches around the city that said Just Decks. And then they started expanding, and then around the edge of the decks, so it says Just Decks, and then it would say, and pools, and siding, and windows, and
Hmm.
and all these, and you're like, what do they even do? And I know for all of us, we want to be everything to everybody, but just think about the power of simplification, and especially simplification in the buyer's mind about what it is what problems you're solving and who you are. Um, I had a friend who was a big shot at Domino's for a while, pizza, and he says something like part of the message was early on. I think they've changed and they haven't done as well. Is they only offered like 4 or 5 pizzas, and like for sodas they had Coke and like 7-Up, and that was it. And he's like, we should offer Diet Coke. He's like, no, simplicity. And just like really limiting. I just saw the CEO of Costco speak recently. If you go to Costco, there's one brand of coffee maker, but I want this other one. Tough. We have one. And it's, I think, the 12th largest company in the world. And so when you look at, your competitors who are like, we're the leaders in healthcare, whatever. If you're a healthcare company, you go with them, and your company, you lose because you're everybody. And so I really feel like just think about all the examples around you, and really, I think the power of putting the idea in people's minds, like they want to put you in a slot, let them and give them something that's valuable to put you into, because then you'll start seeing those referrals. Cause now I know who you are. If you're just, I had a friend who's a lawyer. What does he do? I don't know. But if I find out he's like a divorce attorney, God forbid, whatever, you're like, oh, you need to talk to Charlie because that's what he does. Not you give them the momentum they need to create those referrals.
No, I love this. There's kind of a theme going on, simplifying the decision-making process for your customers. Ask the right questions, help them understand, make the choices simple. I think we said earlier in the thing in our discussion on another note, we talked about, well, you don't want 3 or 4 choices. You want 1 or 2 choices max. Make the decision easy. That applies here. So I love this. I love this, Mike. This has been fantastic. With all this that we've said, for somebody who's a CEO, building their company, I don't want to say following in your footsteps, because everyone has their own path, but a lot of the milestones along the way are similar. For somebody who's traveling a similar path and runs into some of these milestone moments, what advice would you give them to, maybe focus on the opportunity than the challenge or the obstacle in those situations? How would you advise them?
Inadvertently plugging my book I wrote a few years ago. I think the main idea is simply a mindset idea. And if you're, when you're facing a challenge, it's the difference between, I'm at the free throw line. Am I going to make this foul shot, or am I going to miss it? And I think if you believe you're going to make it, I think everyone would agree your chances are better than if you think you're not going to make it. So some of it's just a choice. It's just jump in the pool. It's introduce yourself at the conference. It's, take the leap. The, fear kills so much. It's the reason behind so many things that go wrong. And I don't think there's even an intellectual argument to be made against niching down. And yet, I'm here talking about like I got it nailed. I do not. And it's a struggle every day because something cool comes in. Oh, we got a lead from a medical thing. That sounds interesting. And so it's like really like focusing in on that and being consistent with it. You can see the evidence all around you about maybe even the people we all have that friend or person in our network. Like, how did that guy sell his company for $100 million? And I bet you right now, if you think about it, they did something super focused and simple in a niche market, and then they crushed it.
I love that. Well, focusing down, man, it seems like there's a lot to simplify here a lot of complexity, but we need to simplify it in order to really achieve the outcomes we want. So I'm gonna have to give some more thought to that, Mike. That's very insightful, I think. So, well, I appreciate you coming on the show. It's been really a pleasure having you, Mike. It's been good. I know that our listeners love hearing just the insights from people who've been down the path before. So it's very valuable to the audience to see where you've been and hear about how you think about or have thought about some of the decisions along the way.
Jeff, it's been a pleasure. You're a great host. So thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And to our audience who joined us today, thanks again for joining us on the Breakout CEO Podcast. Be sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And if you enjoy the show, a rating or a review goes a long way. Our mission is to promote the stories of breakout CEOs in scaling SaaS, e-commerce, and tech companies to equip peer CEOs with valuable perspectives and confidence. Thanks again for joining us on this episode of the Breakout CEO. I'm Jeff Holman, and I'll see you next time.